Hey there, how's everybody doing today? So, I was shooting a couple of test rolls with my latest acquisition, this lovely Pentax Spotmatic SP2. And I was shooting this lens. It is a Sears, Auto Sears, 28mm f2.8, which I'm very impressed with. Pleasantly surprised with the quality of this lens. I'm not sure who made it. The fact that it's Sears suggests that it would be Ricoh, but that sort of begs the question, did Ricoh make their own lenses back then? And I have no idea. At any rate, nice lens, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. I want to mention the problems I had with focusing. The old M42 cameras of the 60s and early 70s relied on a ground glass screen with a spot or a circle in the middle called a microprism spot. And the microprism spot, if you haven't seen it, is essentially a circle in the middle of the focusing screen, which contains what can best be described to someone today as, I would say, pixelated. That is, when you turn the focusing ring of your lens, the object you're focusing on in the microprism spot, the pixelation will either get worse or it'll start to clear up. And once the pixelation is completely cleared up, then the microprism spot virtually disappears as it becomes perfectly clear. And that's when you know you have good focus. And that was the focusing aid used on almost all M42 mount cameras. So I was troubled by the fact that this microprism spot was a little dark. And that happens with these old manual focus cameras. The focusing aids tend to get dark and start to fail when the maximum aperture of the lens closes down. That is, if you're using an f2 or an f1.4 lens, no problem. They're all clear. Your focusing aids will be nice and clear. This at f2.8, I should still have a clear focusing aid at 2.8. I mean, most of the accessory lenses for M42 were either an f2.8 or an f3.5. So if the focusing screen or if the focusing aids are blacking out at 2.8, that's kind of a problem, and that's what was bothering me. So anyway, I decided to test the idea and figured I'll compare it with my other M42 cameras. So in addition to this lens, let's see here is my Ricoh Singlex TLS, which I've reviewed and discussed previously on this channel, with a Petri 35mm f2.8, and also got here the Praktica LTL with, and this happens to be a Yashinon 135mm f2.8. So I've got a number of f2.8 maximum aperture lenses here, which I swapped around these three cameras and just attempted to focus on various objects in the vicinity. And thought I'd share thought I would share with you my completely subjective and unscientific impressions. So, regrettably, the Spotmatic's focusing screen, or at least the microprism spot, was indeed the darkest and least reliable. And that's kind of a bummer because the Spotmatic is pretty much the gold standard of M42 SLRs. And I was kind of bummed about that. But whichever lens I put on it, if it's f2.8, I was not getting a perfectly clear microprism spot at correct focus. I couldn't get it to clear up in many circumstances. Whereas the other two, the Ricoh and the Praktica, cleared up just fine. I would say that of the three, the Ricoh's microprism spot is the brightest and clearest. And in a close second place, just behind that, would be the Prakticas. It was just a hair less bright and clear than the Ricoh, but it's much bigger. The microprism spot in the Praktica is a fairly large, which I find useful. I find that to be helpful. The microprism spots in the Ricoh and the Pentax both are kind of small. They're a little on the small side. You kind of have to squint and pay attention to what you're doing when you're focusing on those two cameras. Bigger spot here is nicer. And just for fun, I also took out my Nichromat, or this one is a Nicomat in the Japanese market, and with the 35 millimeter f2.8 here, and compared that to the results I was getting with the other three cameras, and the Nichromat is the clear winner. This camera has the brightest, clearest microprism spot. It's also larger than the microprism spot on the Ricoh or the Pentax, not as large as on the Praktica, but nonetheless, in terms of clarity and ease of use, the Nichromat wins, hands down. Next in line, in my preference, would be the Ricoh. Nice, bright focusing spot, easy to use. Next would be the Praktica, almost as bright as the Ricoh and much larger, which to me, to my eye, makes it a little bit easier to use. And coming in dead last, and noticeably so, is the Spotmatic with a small and darkish microprism spot. So those are my subjective observations based upon nothing scientific whatsoever. What are your thoughts? Do you have experience with these cameras? What are your feelings and thoughts about the brightness of the focusing aids and the usefulness of the focusing aids in these old cameras? Personally, I think it's a bit of a shame that the microprism spot is starting to fail at f2.8. That bothers me. The other two cameras did not have that problem. Although their focusing screens aren't as bright as you would have in a modern camera, but they're certainly a little bit brighter than the Spotmatics. Okay, that's all I have for you today. Again, if you have experience or information that I don't, drop a comment, let me know, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.